I knew my family was dysfunctional, but I never thought they'd forge my name on a $70,000 loan, then try to ruin my life when I refused to pay for it. My name is Emily Parker. I'm 30 years old, and I live in Chicago, the city of skyscrapers and endless hustle, where Lake Michigan sparkles in the sun, and the winter wind can cut through your bones. By day, I work as a data analyst at one of the top investment firms downtown, a place where numbers make sense, charts tell the truth, and everything feels solid and predictable. I like it that way. I've always believed that if you work hard, keep your life organized, and follow the rules, you'll be safe. But nothing could have prepared me for what my own family was capable of doing behind my back. From the outside, we're the Parkers, an all-American family that looks perfect in Christmas cards. My dad, Raymond Parker, is a well-known surgeon with a wall of awards in his office, the kind of man who makes everyone stand a little taller when he walks into a room. My mom, Carolyn, is a high school teacher adored by her students and worshipped at church bake sales, with her sweet smile and perfectly styled hair. And then there's my sister, Samantha Parker. She's 27, drop-dead gorgeous, always the center of attention. Her hair changes color with the seasons. Platinum one month, copper the next. She's the it girl on social media, chasing dreams in the fashion world, posting selfies from rooftop bars and exclusive events, living a life that looks dazzling through a phone screen. Growing up, it felt like there were two worlds under the same roof. One was bright and sparkling, Samantha's world. The other was quieter, mine. My parents adored her fiery spirit, her charm, her chaos. They said she was passionate when she threw tantrums. They called me difficult when I asked for space or spoke my mind. When she crashed Dad's new car at 19, they called it a youthful mistake. When I once accidentally stained the carpet with coffee, it was irresponsible. Everything came easier to Samantha. Opportunities, forgiveness, attention. At every family dinner, I was the responsible one. The one who cleaned up dishes while Samantha told wild stories about modeling gigs and celebrity parties. My parents would look at her like she hung the stars, while I sat there, invisible, just trying to keep the peace. It didn't matter that I was the one who worked 2 jobs to pay my way through Northwestern. It didn't matter that I'd built a stable life with my own apartment in Lincoln Park, a solid 401k, and a credit score I guarded like a treasure. To them, Samantha was the star. I was the safety net, and for a long time, I accepted it. I believed family meant sacrifice, that maybe it was my job to help Samantha stay on her feet. But there's a difference between helping someone and letting them destroy your life. Nothing drove that home harder than the day I opened an envelope that would change everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and the true cost of family. When I think back, I realize the cracks were always there. Hairline fractures in the walls of what everyone else believed was the perfect Parker family. I remember being 12 years old, sitting on the staircase, listening to my parents arguing in low, sharp voices. The fight was about money, and about Samantha. Even then, she was already different, special, untouchable. She'd thrown a fit over not getting a designer dress for a school dance. Mom pleaded with Dad to buy it anyway, saying Samantha just wanted to feel special. Meanwhile, I was learning how to sew the hem on my own dress, because Mom said mine wasn't worth the cost to alter. Those moments, they started small. By high school, Samantha was living like a starlet in a teen drama, skipping classes, dating older guys, collecting expensive purses. I was the invisible sister who kept straight A's and tutored the football team to pay for college application fees. But the older we got, the more serious the consequences became. At 20, Samantha decided to enroll in a fashion institute in Los Angeles. My parents celebrated like she'd been accepted to Harvard. They sent her off with brand new luggage and a credit card for emergencies. Meanwhile, I was working 3 part-time jobs while taking my finance degree. I remember calling Mom one night, exhausted after a double shift, saying I might have to drop a class because I couldn't afford the books. She told me to stop being dramatic and to remember how lucky I was to be so self-sufficient. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I swallowed it, like I always did. Then came the financial favors. The first time Samantha called me asking for help, she cried so hard I could barely understand her words. She'd gotten behind on rent and was terrified of getting kicked out. I wired her $1,500 that same night. Thank you. You're my lifesaver. She texted me the next day, followed by a selfie blowing me a kiss. A month later, she posted a picture from a pool party in Malibu. That pattern never stopped. Samantha's life was an endless carousel of emergencies. Unpaid credit card bills, car repairs, overdue rent. Each time, she swore it was the last time. Each time, I believed her, because I was desperate for them all to finally see me as more than the difficult one. Even when I tried to set boundaries, the guilt trips followed me like shadows. Mom would say things like, "Emily, you're so strong. Samantha isn't built the way you are. You have to help her." Dad would add, "We've invested so much in your future. The least you can do is help your sister when she needs it." Every holiday, I held my breath. There was the Christmas when Samantha forgot to buy gifts, and I secretly covered the cost so she wouldn't look bad in front of the family. The Thanksgiving when she showed up 3 hours late. But somehow I was the one criticized for making a scene because I'd started dinner without her. And then, the small betrayals started to turn into bigger ones. A few years ago, I got a call from my credit card company about suspicious charges plane tickets to Miami, a luxury hotel, designer shoes. The charges were traced back to a card Samantha had somehow added as an authorized user. When I confronted my parents, Mom said, "She was just borrowing it. She would have paid you back." Dad told me, "Why are you always looking for reasons to punish your sister?" I felt like I was going crazy, because every time I tried to pull away, they found new ways to reel me back in. But none of those memories, none of those warning signs, prepared me for the day my own name would be forged on a loan that could have ruined my entire life. It happened on a Saturday in early October. I was sitting at my desk, crunching numbers for a quarterly report, when my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a tagged photo on Instagram from my cousin Olivia. The picture hit me like a slap. My entire family, Mom, Dad, Samantha, aunts, uncles, cousins, all smiling under a silver and gold balloon arch that read, "Happy 40th Anniversary. Ray and Carolyn." Tables glowed under twinkling lights. Champagne glasses sparkled. And Samantha posed in the center like she owned the room, wearing a shimmering cocktail dress that probably cost more than my rent. My stomach twisted. My parents' 40th wedding anniversary. A milestone. A night I assumed we'd celebrate together. I scrolled through the carousel of photos, each one slicing deeper. Dad giving a toast. Mom wiping away happy tears. A giant cake in the shape of a wedding ring. Samantha hugging people I hadn't seen in years. And me, nowhere. I stared at the screen so long that my eyes blurred. My coffee went cold beside me. My hands were trembling as I dialed my mom's number. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice bright and breezy. "Hi, sweetheart. How's my favorite girl?" I swallowed hard, forcing my words out around the lump in my throat. "Mom, why wasn't I invited to your anniversary party?" There was a pause, so tiny. But in that silence, my world tilted. "Oh, Emily, don't make this a thing. It was just a casual get-together. Very last minute. We knew how busy you always are with work." Samantha mentioned you said you couldn't make it anyway. My voice rose, sharp and cutting. I never said that. Why would you believe her without even asking me? Mom sighed, the kind of sigh that always made me feel small. Emily, your sister's been under a lot of stress lately. She didn't want any tension that night. You know how sensitive she is. We thought it would be best for everyone. Best for everyone, except me. My chest ached. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. That night, as I sat alone in my apartment, a text popped up on my screen. It was from Samantha. Hey, sorry you weren't at the party. It was amazing. BTW, can you help me pick out a gift for Mom and Dad? I'm thinking diamond earrings, but I need your financial expertise. LOL. No apology, no explanation. Just another ask. As if being left out didn't matter. As if I'd simply been an afterthought. I threw my phone across the couch, pressing my palms over my face, trying to fight the tears. Because it wasn't just about missing a party. It was proof. Solid, undeniable proof that I was expendable in my own family. And as I sat there, the city lights flickering outside my window, something inside me began to crack. A few weeks after the anniversary party I never got to attend, the envelope arrived. It was a Thursday evening. The city was wrapped in that damp, chilly air. Chicago gets in late October, the kind that soaks into your bones. I'd just gotten home from work, dropped my keys in the bowl by the door, and sorted through a stack of mail. Bills, junk flyers, a thick, cream-colored envelope. My parents' address was printed neatly in the top left corner. I felt a tiny flare of hope. Maybe it was an apology. A letter saying they'd realized they'd gone too far, that they missed me. Instead, what fell into my hands was a bomb waiting to detonate. Inside was a packet of crisp documents. My eyes landed on the first page, vehicle retail installment contract. And beneath that, amount financed $70,425.36. I blinked hard, trying to make sense of the words swimming in front of me. The buyer's name Samantha Parker, the co-signer Emily Parker, my name, in a perfectly forged signature that looked almost identical to mine. My chest went icy cold. I flipped through the pages, my fingers shaking so hard the paper rattled. There were loan terms, interest rates, monthly payments of over $1,100, insurance documentation, an extended warranty agreement, and then, taped to the final page, was a handwritten note from Samantha. Thanks for helping me get my dream Porsche Macan. Mom and Dad said you'd understand. Payment starts. Nova 1st. Love you, sis. I nearly dropped the entire packet. Dream Porsche Macan. My mind spun, trying to grasp how my sister, who couldn't pay her rent half the time, had managed to secure a luxury SUV. In my name. I dialed my parents before I could talk myself out of it. My father answered on the second ring. Emily. Glad you called. Listen, about the car. I cut him off, my voice trembling. Dad, what the hell is this? I didn't co-sign anything for Samantha. That is not my signature. He let out a sigh, like I was inconveniencing him. Sweetheart, don't be so dramatic. Samantha needed a reliable vehicle. The dealership required a co-signer. We knew you'd want to help your sister. You're doing so well. It's just a few payments. My breath hitched. A few payments, Dad. This is fraud. You forged my name on a $70,000 loan. That's harsh. Emily, your mother signed for you because you were going to make this difficult. But we all know you'd rather help than see your sister stranded. She's got big things happening in her career. She can't show up in some old clunker. I wanted to scream. My father's voice oozed that same condescension I'd grown up with. That subtle message that my feelings were irrelevant. That Samantha's wants were sacred. I hung up before I could say something I'd regret. My heart was pounding so violently I felt sick. I sank onto the edge of my couch, the paperwork slipping from my fingers. This wasn't a favor. This was criminal, and for the first time in my life, I realized my family was capable of destroying me if it meant keeping Samantha's world spinning. 3 days later, I found myself standing in front of the Parker family home, a towering red brick colonial in the suburbs, with its perfect lawn and the American flag fluttering gently in the breeze. The same house that looked so warm in Christmas cards, but now felt like a fortress I needed to breach. Samantha's brand new Porsche Macan was parked in the driveway, glinting in the afternoon sun. My pulse thudded in my ears as I rang the doorbell. Mom answered, wearing a soft pink cardigan and a forced smile that didn't touch her eyes. "Emily, so good to see you." "Come in, sweetheart." I stepped inside, the familiar scent of cinnamon candles hitting me like a punch of nostalgia I didn't want. Dad was waiting in the living room, arms folded, his expression grave. Samantha sat sprawled on the white leather couch, scrolling through her phone, acting as if nothing in the world was wrong. Dad gestured to a chair across from Samantha. "Sit down. Emily, let's talk about this like adults." I refused to sit. My voice cut through the silence, sharp and trembling. "I'm not here to talk. I'm here to ask why. Why would you forge my signature? Why would you put a $70,000 loan in my name?" Samantha finally looked up, rolling her eyes. "Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. It's just a car." My fists clenched at my sides. A $70,000 Porsche is not just a car. Sam, you committed fraud. Do you understand that you could ruin my credit, my job, my entire life? Dad's voice boomed, firm and dismissive. "Watch your tone. Young lady, we're family. Families help each other. You're acting like some stranger off the street." I glared at him, my breath coming fast. "Families don't forge each other's names on loans. You stole my identity. How could you do that to me?" Samantha shot to her feet, tossing her phone onto the couch. "You always think you're better than me. You and your spreadsheets and your perfect little apartment. You've always judged me, Emily. Well, guess what? Some of us want to live, not spend our lives buried in Excel files." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "This isn't about me thinking I'm better than you. It's about the fact that you put me in debt for a car I didn't buy. You're endangering my career, my future. And for what? So you can post selfies with a luxury SUV." Mom tried to step between us, her voice low and soothing. "Emily, sweetheart, Samantha's under so much pressure right now. She's building her brand, and this car is part of her image. We just assumed you'd understand. You're always the strong one." My laugh came out bitter and sharp. "Right. The strong one. The one you can ignore. The one you can exploit because you know I'll clean up the mess. I'm done being your safety net," Samantha sneered, her voice rising. "You know what? You're pathetic. You're alone. Emily, no husband, no kids. You don't even have a pet. You work all the time and you think that makes you superior. Newsflash. Nobody likes you. Not even your own family." Her words sliced through me like glass. But something inside me solidified in that moment. I stared her down. At least I pay for my own life. I don't need to steal someone else's credit to look successful. Dad's face darkened, his voice dropping low. "If you pursue this fraud nonsense, if you drag this family through lawyers and police, you can consider yourself cut off from all of us." My heart slammed against my ribs. For a fleeting second, I felt that old panic, that fear of losing the people who were supposed to love me. But then I realized something. They weren't really losing me. They'd never actually seen me at all. I lifted my chin, my voice calm but cold. "Then I guess I'm already gone." And I walked out, leaving them in stunned silence behind me. The door slammed shut behind me, and as I stepped out into the crisp October air, I felt like my entire body was shaking from the inside out. But I didn't have time to fall apart, because the fallout came faster than I ever imagined. The very next morning, I was at my desk in the office, trying to focus on an earnings forecast, when my work phone rang. It was the bank. A woman with a polite but cautious voice said they'd flagged suspicious login attempts on my primary savings account. Someone had tried and failed to transfer $10,000 late the night before. My stomach dropped through the floor. "Do you know who might have access to your online banking?" she asked. My mind flashed back to the old laptop I'd given my parents last Christmas, the one I'd logged into so many times while visiting home. I might, I whispered, my voice tight. I spent my lunch break on the phone with fraud departments, changing passwords, locking down every account I owned. The stress was like a weight pressing on my chest, crushing me with every breath. By the time I got home that evening, my personal cell phone was lit up with messages. One was from my mother. "Emily, your father is devastated. Samantha is inconsolable. How could you do this to us over a simple misunderstanding? We're your family." And another from Samantha, this one dripping with venom. "Thanks for ruining everything. Now Dad's mad at me. I hope your precious credit score keeps you warm at night." But the blow that shattered me completely came the next day at work. My boss, Meredith, called me into her glass-walled office. She closed the door gently, and I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat as she folded her hands on her desk. "Emily, I got a call from your father." My breath caught. "He said you're dealing with significant emotional stress. He was concerned about whether you're stable enough to handle sensitive client data." It felt like my veins turned to ice. Meredith's eyes were kind, but her voice was all business. "I told him I have no reason to question your performance, but is there anything I should be aware of?" A hot flush of humiliation crawled up my neck. "My father is manipulating things. He and my sister. They forged my name on a car loan. It's a long story, but I'm fine. I'm not a risk to this firm." Meredith nodded slowly, but I could see a flicker of doubt in her eyes. When I left her office, I felt everyone's eyes on me through the glass. Coworkers whispered. Conversations hushed as I passed. My private hell was no longer private. I went home that night and stood in my tiny kitchen, staring at the microwave clock blinking 12 invoice. And I felt like my entire life was disintegrating. Family, work, reputation. It was all unraveling, thread by thread. And for the first time, I began to wonder if I'd ever be able to put it back together again. A week later, I found myself in a tiny cafe on the north side of Chicago, clutching a coffee cup so hard my knuckles ached. Across the table sat Jessica Blake, a private investigator recommended by one of my colleagues. She was in her early 40s, with sharp blue eyes and a voice so calm, it made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't going insane. Jessica flipped open a leather notebook and looked at me over the rim of her glasses. "So, you want me to look into your own family?" I let out a shaky laugh. "I know how it sounds. But I need to know how deep this goes. My parents, my sister, they're not just manipulative. I think this is a pattern." Jessica nodded slowly. "Tell me everything you suspect. Leave nothing out." So I did. I spilled every secret I'd swallowed for years, from Samantha's fake credit cards to my forged co-signer signature, to my father calling my boss and trying to poison my career. Jessica listened, scribbling notes, barely blinking. When I finally fell silent, she closed her notebook with a soft thud. "Okay, I'll start with financial records, property, court filings. Let's see what else your family's been hiding." 3 days later, she called me back. "Emily, we need to talk." We met again at the same cafe. This time, she slid a thin file across the table toward me. I dug into your parents' financials, and Samantha's. I held my breath as she spoke. Your parents refinanced their house 3 times in the last 5 years. They've taken out lines of credit against their retirement accounts, and they're carrying credit card debt, close to $80,000. My mouth fell open. But they live like they're loaded. The trips, the cars, the clothes. Jessica's gaze was steady. Appearances, Emily, it's all appearances. She turned the page, and Samantha, she's in deeper than you know. She's racked up over $120,000 in unpaid bills, store cards, personal loans, even payday lenders. And get this, there's evidence your parents co-signed a loan for your cousin Tyler 2 years ago, a $25,000 timeshare. He defaulted, and your parents forced him to pay it back, under threat of cutting him off completely. I felt like the floor was dissolving under my feet. Jessica lowered her voice. Emily, this isn't just one incident. Your family has a pattern. They target the person in the family with the most stable finances. They exploit guilt, shame, loyalty. You're not the first. You just might be the first to stand up and say no. Tears welled in my eyes, hot and stinging. All these years, I thought I was the problem, the difficult daughter, the cold sister, but it was them. Jessica squeezed my hand gently. You're not crazy. You're a mark, and it stops now. I left that cafe with my heart pounding, my mind spinning with shock and fury, because in that moment, I finally understood. My family hadn't just betrayed me. They'd made a career out of betraying anyone who trusted them. 2 days later, I was sitting in a sunlit office on the 24th floor of a downtown Chicago building. Across the sleek wooden desk sat Natalie Carter, a partner at one of the city's top law firms. She wore a navy suit, and her voice was low, precise, and steady, the kind of voice that made you feel both terrified and safe at the same time. She was flipping through the packet of documents I'd handed her, the forged car loan paperwork, printouts of Samantha's texts, bank statements, and Jessica Blake's investigation report. After a long silence, Natalie took off her glasses and looked at me with eyes full of quiet steel. Emily, I'm going to be completely honest with you. What your family did. This is fraud, felony fraud. If you wanted, you could press criminal charges against your mother and sister. Potential prison time. A shiver ran through me as the words prison time echoed in my ears. I swallowed hard. I don't want my mother to go to jail, but I can't keep living like this. They tried to destroy my life. Natalie nodded slowly. There's another option. You can file reports with the bank and dealership. They'll remove your name from the loan, repossess the vehicle. It might ruin Samantha's credit, but it will protect yours. Or we can negotiate a civil settlement where they pay you damages and legal costs. But either way, you have to be prepared for war. I stared down at the grain of the wooden desk, feeling every nerve in my body vibrate. Natalie leaned forward. Emily, I'm going to tell you something personal. When I was 25, my own father stole $30,000 from my savings account. He forged my name on loan papers too, and I let it slide because I was too scared to lose my family. She paused, her eyes distant for a moment. It took me 5 more years and losing almost everything to realize family doesn't get to abuse you just because you share DNA. Boundaries don't make you a bad daughter. They make you free. I blinked back tears as I whispered, I'm so tired of being the strong one. I'm tired of being the one who pays for everybody's mistakes. Natalie's voice softened. Then maybe it's time to stop paying. A fierce, unfamiliar feeling began to build in my chest. I took a deep breath. I want to file the fraud reports. I want my name cleared. And I want to make sure they can never do this to me again. Natalie gave a slow, approving nod. Good. We'll start with the bank tomorrow. I'll handle all the communication. You just keep every message they send you. No responses, no engagement. You protect yourself now." As I left her office, the late afternoon sun blazed off the skyscrapers, almost blinding. The wind off the lake was cold enough to sting my cheeks. For the first time in months, I felt lighter, scared, sad, but lighter, because I'd finally made a decision. I was done sacrificing my future to protect people who had never once protected me. 3 days later, my phone rang while I was standing in the kitchen, staring blankly into the fridge, wondering if I even had an appetite left. It was Robert, a manager from the bank's fraud department. His voice was crisp but kind. "Ms. Parker, I'm calling to confirm the investigation is complete. We've verified your signature was forged. Your name has been removed from the loan, and the vehicle will be repossessed." I let out a breath I didn't even know I'd been holding. "Thank you. Thank you so much," I whispered, my voice shaking. I hung up and leaned my forehead against the cool stainless steel of the fridge door, tears spilling down my cheeks. But relief didn't last long. Less than 2 hours later, my phone exploded with notifications. Samantha was calling over and over. Voicemails filled with shrieks. "They took my car. I'm stranded at the mall. Emily, how could you do this to me? You ruined my life." I didn't answer. I blocked her number instead, feeling my hand tremble as I pressed the screen. Mom called next, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and tears. "Your father is sick over this. Samantha is devastated. How could you betray us like this? You are no daughter of mine." I blocked her too. And then I blocked my father. One by one, I severed every digital tether tying me to people who had only ever drained me. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, the city lights flickering outside my window like distant stars. For a moment, I felt like a ghost, untethered, alone. But as days passed, I started to realize something. I wasn't just losing my family. I was gaining my freedom. I resigned from my job 2 weeks later. Meredith tried to convince me to stay, but my mind was made up. I packed my apartment, donated half my furniture to charity, and moved to Austin, Texas, a place I'd always dreamed about, with warm sunshine and open skies. In Austin, I rented a tiny loft, started freelance consulting, joined a hiking group, signed up for therapy twice a week, and for the first time, I felt like I was building a life that was mine. A life not built on secrets, or guilt, or cleaning up other people's messes. One evening, at a yoga class, I met Daniel, a guy with kind eyes and a soft laugh, who asked if I wanted to grab tacos afterward. We sat under fairy lights, eating spicy food, and for the first time in forever, I laughed until my stomach hurt. He didn't know me as the difficult one, or the savior sister. He just knew me as Emily. And that was enough. Sometimes, I still wake up in the middle of the night, my heart racing, convinced I've made a terrible mistake. There are moments quiet, ordinary moments when I look around my little Austin loft and wonder if I've lost too much. My parents, my sister, the idea of family I clung to for so long. But then, I remember the truth. Family isn't just blood. It's not people who demand you sacrifice yourself to keep them comfortable. Family is the people who show up when life falls apart, the ones who don't keep score, the ones who love you not for what you can give them, but simply because you exist. I've learned that setting boundaries doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. I've learned that you're allowed to say no, even to the people who raised you. And most of all, I've learned that protecting your own peace is not selfish. It's survival. Samantha still tries to reach out sometimes, through old friends, through blocked numbers. Her messages swing wildly between rage and regret, but I've stopped answering because I finally understand that loving someone doesn't mean letting them wreck your life. A few weeks ago, I started writing a blog, sharing my story, not for sympathy, but because I know there's someone out there feeling trapped, the way I once did. And if my words can help just one person realize that it's okay to choose themselves, then maybe everything I went through wasn't for nothing. I've discovered a new truth. Real family isn't who shares your DNA. It's who claps for your victories, cries with you in your losses, and never, ever expects you to pay for their mistakes. If you're listening to this and you're carrying secrets, debts, guilt that doesn't belong to you, I want you to know this. You are not alone. You are not selfish for wanting peace. You are allowed to step away from people who hurt you, even if they call themselves family. And sometimes, choosing yourself is the bravest, most loving thing you'll ever do. Because life is too short to keep living for other people's chaos. And you deserve to finally live yours